All right, so I will project. So if anybody can't hear me, just make me repeat it, that's fine. So I am John Rowan, and I am with Home Fraud Defense. And we are a state certified program, an educational program. We actually offer continuing education for real estate agents. We offer continuing law education for lawyers. We are a vendor with the state of Arizona for fraud prevention and education. So I was just going to share a little bit about who I am and where I came from, and really what we're talking about in this initiative that I started was trying to educate consumers on this rapid rise in AI fraud that we are all experiencing. So a couple of years ago, it was kind of common. You get a text message or you get an email. They were pretty easy to tell if it was fraudulent compared to if it was, something from a legitimate person. But those boundaries, those barriers have evaporated now. In the age of AI, we're all faced with a significant increase in fraud activity targeting homeowners, consumers, and most importantly, our seniors that are in the community. So that's why we're here. It's a community free event. We're just going to share with you what we're seeing on the professional level, what we're seeing out there attacking our real estate transactions, attacking our consumers, our homeowners. And it's not about just real estate. This is about just every level of fraud that we're seeing out there. So I'll share some goodies. So this is me. I am the founder of this company. We started last year after a huge fraud event that I was actually involved in the city of Scottsdale. And I'll share that in a minute. But I'm the founder of this company. I'm also a former commercial pilot. I retired from United Airlines, came out here to just do real estate, have fun, and that turned into a huge operation for me. So it turned out, instead of just doing it part-time, it ended up being a full-time operation. The last couple of years, I average about 70 transactions a year. I'm in the top 100 in the state of Arizona, top 1% nationally. So what that's done is it's exposed me to a lot of fraud, a lot of fraudulent transactions that I've been able to capture and educate fellow agents, educate brokers, title, lenders, everybody that I can about what we're running into. So I've actually had 11 total fraudulent transactions, and this company, since we founded Home Fraud Defense, we're responsible and very proud of, we've been able to stop, identified $40 million worth of fraud attempts just in the state of Arizona. So yeah, very, very exciting. So in the market, I have become the real fraud expert. I appear on podcasts, on local news. I've been featured on the National Law Review, as well as Yahoo Finance and CNN Money. All the different companies, all the different agencies out there now, if there's anything in and around the real estate world, ProPublica, they call me and they want information, so I kind of dissect it for them, give them some expert information. So the program that we started, the initiative, is not just about, like I said, education. It's about all these partnerships that we've done, because there's a lot of sort of programs and initiatives that teach the basics. But there's nobody that's, for one, teaching it not only to attorneys, but teaching it to real estate agents, teaching it to financial planners and lenders. We're teaching it in a broad spectrum across all levels where you, as a consumer, are handling your money. Because anytime there's financial transactions, that's where the fraud is targeting. Real estate is the number one prize. So that's why we're so focused on training the professionals that are handling those transactions. We're training them to identify it, and we're also giving you, as a consumer, a way that you can identify somebody that's gone through this training. So we offer, it's called a Home Fraud Defense Certified Professional Designation. We are national now. As of last month, we've gone national with several different organizations providing fraud training in all 50 states right now. So we're very excited about our growth. But we partner not only with the Attorney General's office, the Department of Real Estate. We partner with all the different companies on the state agency level, because we do have that vendor and that certification. What's different about us, what we're doing with this initiative, is, and I'll talk a little bit about it when I was meeting with some of these state leaders, but one of the problems with training on a professional level is, and you're all aware of it, you're, I'm sure, all very accomplished and you've been through this before, But when it comes to professional education, there's a big lag in professional education. So by the time fraud is sort of, okay, we've got a pattern, we've got this thing going, now we're going to get it out, we're going to train the professionals in that category. By the time that gets to the professional training environment, it's already obsolete. So that's the resistance, and that's sort of what I found out when I was running into my transaction deal, was that everybody not only had outdated information, but there was no real strong resource out there for people to use. So we put together the website. Our website, homefrauddefense.org, has huge updated, constantly updated resources for you. We also have 4 new tools that are launching this month, where you can basically go into our site for free and you can check your deed. You can see if there's any recording activity. You can actually scan, click, copy any potential email, text, anything that you've gotten, and our system will track it to give you a fraud alert on it, let you know if that's a valid system. But what we do is I founded, it's called the Home Fraud Defense Council, and we have various organizations throughout basically every state now as we're growing. And we're working with individual leaders, real estate brokers, top cash home buyers, attorneys, and we're getting the tip of it, we're getting all that current knowledge from them, and we're taking that and we're putting it into our program, and we're educating the professionals out there. So when you see somebody that's got our designation, you know that they've got the most current relevant information, and they also are a resource for you, like Lisa, you know, if you have a question. So with me, what happened is it was Halloween Day last year. I actually got a phone call, and I'm a cash home buyer too. I buy a lot of properties out there. And this lady called and she said, hey, got a house, I want to sell it, need to sell it quick. And a lot of kind of warning flags were going on in there. And one of the backgrounds that I didn't mention in the previous slide was not only my commercial pilot, but I had one of the largest fraud mitigation companies in the United States. I had a GSA contract. I delivered fraud and provided fraud protection for the Department of Defense, the White House, Berkshire Hathaway, Amazon Corporate, Harvard University. So my system, my software would basically scan checks that were being processed, and we would reach out to their bank and we would stop different things as they were coming through. So we're able to develop a program. I had 250 employees when I sold the product in 2020 when I moved out here and started this initiative. But what I found in the corporate world and the government world, all these fraud activities that were happening, when I came into the real estate world, it was very, very similar. All the traits, all the warning flags were all there, but there was no training. So that's what we're doing. So I got a phone call, like I said, gal said, want to sell a house, I want to sell it fast. I'm like, great, where is it? And it was in Scottsdale, Hayden Ranch, beautiful area. So I went and I'm driving past $1 million, $2 million, $3 million homes, and then here's the junker on the block. So I go and I look at the house, and it needed a massive amount of work, and I asked her how much she wanted, and I said, well, that's a fair price. But there was a lot of sort of red flags as I was talking to her. The story kept changing. As I walked up to the property, there was a landscaper there, and he said that the owner was a man who lived not far away in a retirement center and basically was getting healthy and planning to move back into the house. The gal on the phone said they had died, she inherited the property, so there were some warning flags. I pulled up the deed from my phone, and immediately from my background as a GSA contractor, I immediately identified it as, this is a fraudulent transaction. But this is the interesting part. I thought in this world of modern law enforcement, all the education that's going on out there, that there would be a phone number, that there would be a person to call, there would be something that would happen, and I could easily have this sort of run down the channels and these people would be stopped, arrested, and we would stop this thing. There wasn't. I talked to the title company. The title company said, well, we have privacy concerns. We can't share anything. All we can do is say, this obviously looks bad to us. We want to move on. We don't want to do this anymore. My broker, other agents, it's like, yep, nope, yeah, we don't want any part of that. It looks suspicious. So I'm like, wait a minute. So I looked up the owner, the prior owner. I just Googled him. I found his name. After about the 7th phone number, I got a hold of a gentleman, and I said, look, don't hang up, please, because everybody does. Do you own a home on 81st Street in Scottsdale? And he goes, yes. Who's this? Very skeptical. And I'm like, please don't hang up. I just got a phone call from a lady that says she's selling it, but she only bought it and recorded a warranty deed 3 days ago. Did you sell it? And he lit up. Oh my God, I did not sell it. I got a notice from the county, which a lot of you are familiar. You can put notices in with your county to get these alerts. Well, he got a notice, but if you've ever actually gotten one of those emails, there's no information. And it's post-mortem, meaning, hey, congratulations, sort of, your home sold, it transferred. But there's no call this number, here's what to do. If this isn't something that you planned on, here's help. So I struck up a conversation with him and I said, look, don't worry, I'm gonna help you. Have you called the police? And he said, I did, but they just kind of laughed. They're like, what do you mean your house is stolen? We drove by it and it's right there. So nobody stole your house. So I'm like, okay, let me call the police. So I called the Scottsdale police. They were amazing. And I told them what was going on. I'm like, yes, this is legitimate. They are stealing the house, but not in a way like you think. They've stolen the title. So I walked them through it and I said, please, we can arrest these people because I guarantee they're talking to other people. So let's meet them at the title company. I'll get them in there. I'll promise them a big fat check. We'll get them in there. And we did. Scottsdale police showed up, 4 undercover cars, 8 officers inside. They were arrested. And it turned out to be a huge sting. So not only had they were attempting to do it with the house that they called me on, they had just done it for $205,000 in Phoenix the week before. And they had 32 other forged warranty deeds in their back seat that they were in the process of filing one by one. Not to mention, when they did a search warrant, they pulled out the information from her text messages. The day before, found out that they were actually also doing they were doing mortuary burglary, which is where people search public records, and as soon as somebody passes, they just go and see if the house is empty, and then they break in. But they make it look like it's not a break-in. They actually just get in, lock the door behind them, and they look for anything that's of value. Cash, jewelry, anything that they can just walk out with, and nobody's gonna know when the family comes in. So they had done a $40,000 theft, and the people were all happy. They said, we found a box, $40,000 cash in the attic. So very excited, thanks for the tip. So it was a big sting, and there's a lot of other things that went in this, but this became a national story. So we went worldwide, the videos went, all the local news agencies picked up on it. But in the world of real estate, because I'm a licensed agent as well, I got a phone call from the real estate commissioner, and it turns out that one of those people that saw it was the Attorney General and the entire Attorney General's office. So they said, hey, Susan, the Department of Real Estate, reach out to this guy, give him a pat on the back, you did a great job. Because I got this sting busted. So she called, it was exciting. I sat down with them and also sat down with the Attorney General, and she said, we are trying to do something, but we can't act fast enough. We need something like this. And I presented what we were doing, and she said, we support you, and they fast-tracked what normally would be a 2-year process, fast-tracked a state-certified education program for the real estate community in 48 hours after I presented everything to them. So I met him on Wednesday. By Friday, I was an instructor, and we had a whole new school and designation in the state. That has spun off to be a national program, as I mentioned. But I was invited to the Attorney General's office, and one thing that they pointed out to me is, as I'm sitting in there, and it's all the top law enforcement of the state, myself, Doug Hopkins, who's a big cash home buyer who's sharing some stories, the elder abuse, Shane Ham, who's great with the Adult Protective Services. And these are the words that they were using, not me, before I got up. Public health crisis, epidemic, consumer emergency, generational wealth being stolen. What you don't see out in your everyday life is what law enforcement and what leaders are seeing happen. Here's a sobering statistic that I'm going to bring to you, and this is brand new. 1 in 4, so 25% of real estate transactions in 2025 are a target of fraud. 1 in 20 are actually victimized, meaning at some point they lose money. They click on a text, they click on an email, they do something that they weren't normally, would think that would just be a normal day-to-day process, but it opened them up to being a victim. So think about that as, when I'm talking to real estate professionals, I'm like, if you do 10 deals in a year, you're going to see a transaction like this. And people, consumers, expect the professionals to understand when something comes up so that they can protect you. So that's what our program is about. I got up, Susan Nicholson with the Department of Real Estate said, okay, you need education, you got to let John talk. And my 15 minutes of presentation turned into a 2-hour speech. So basically what we've done is bridge this gap in education to the real estate world to be able to really share with you what we're seeing out there and empower all these professionals that we're training to go out and hold community events like this so we can talk to consumers. So you guys have a resource. So you can go to our website, you can talk to a local professional that's got our designation so you know that there's someone out there to help you. This is all a victim or a process of AI. And everybody here is familiar with AI, I'm sure. And in a professional world, it's just become a day-to-day process. We just use AI, we do. But when you talk about the dark side of our community in the world, they use it too. So now you've got people that would normally not be that intelligent that might send you an email, and we all recognize those emails from the past, right? You get an email and it was like obviously broken English, misspellings, and you're like, oh, that's fraud, delete spam. It's not like that anymore. Now fraudsters can go in with AI and they can generate a message that is so good, you can't tell it from a professional email. They can mask, they can clone voicemail, they can do all kinds of things with new AI technology that basically is indistinguishable from a normal consumer as a fraud attempt. So that's what we're trying to do, is teach this out to our community. So we talk about the real estate world, wire fraud always comes up, but it's not just real estate transactions. This is about people that are being catfished. These are people, and I'll explain what that is if people aren't familiar with it, but it's about cryptocurrency scams. And it's targeting not just consumers, it is targeting professionals as well. For example, I had 5 closings 2 weeks ago, and I had 2 different phone calls that were fraud. It was a title agency, they were replicating a title agency saying, hey, we're ready to wire your money, can we get your wiring instructions? And I said, I don't read instructions to anybody, why don't you read the number to me? And they hung up. So keep that in mind, and I'll push that. You as a consumer should never, and I know this is obvious to a lot of people, but maybe not. Never read your numbers, private numbers, social security numbers, account numbers over the phone. Here's what happens with the fraudsters. It's pretty sneaky. What they'll do is they'll say in a transaction where you know there's going to be a potential wire transaction, so you're expecting a phone call. So they can call and they can say, hey, I'm here to verify your wiring information. Here's the number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's where they get people. People will go, whoa, that's not my number. My number is this. So they bait you. So this is the newest technique that we're seeing out there. So just keep in mind, it should always be a verification only. You read the number to me, I'll verify. If it's not the right number, I'm hanging up. It's just that simple. So I'll talk about it in a little bit too, but one thing that the AI algorithms are watching for, because a lot of this is, like I said, it's AI generated, is they're watching for your response. They're watching for how you react. So in those situations when things happen, how you respond will trigger the next level of fraud. Because realize that if you answer the phone, now you're in the list, you're in the queue. So, and I'll share with this in a little bit too, but the only correct response when you get a message, a text, an email is you spam and delete. You don't respond, you don't do anything, you just wipe it out and you move on. Remember that no legitimate transaction, nothing that you'll ever do, whether it's buying a house, sending money to family, no legitimate transaction will fall apart with a little bit of time delay. It won't. Everything will stand up to that. So keep that in mind, because fraud pushes on that button for you. This is what we're seeing, this is what I talked about. And 1 in 20 becoming a victim, that's like a tenfold increase over the last 10 years. And it's not because people are getting dumber. We're all getting smarter, but unfortunately, AI is on a much higher curve than we're systems and our education is. So we're seeing a 42% increase in fraud activity and specifically wire transfers, wire fraud in the last 2 years. But the interesting thing is, in the world of real estate, which a lot of us are in the room, in the world of real estate, we know all the different things we're doing, everything we educate on, everything that we do. We see what we're doing, but all of that we're doing is not keeping up with the fraud that we're seeing out there. So that's what we're trying to do, is to educate. These are the numbers, like I said, 1 in 4 transactions, 2.4 billion in loss with a B. When you add in the FCC and the FBI sites, that number, when you take out duplication, is actually $16 billion annually right now is lost to fraudulent transactions. 16 billion is a GDP of a country. So it is a whole industry out there. And what you have to keep in mind is it's not just some guy sitting at a desk in a dark, basement in Africa. These are actually criminal organizations. For example, in Asia, there is full-time advertising employers that are advertising for people to come in and work at their facility. They have hundreds of employees, and it is 100% they go in and they just call people and pull off fraud schemes. It's a full-time job, and they're proud of it. They go, they make money, and that's how this system works. So it's not what you think. And keep in mind, AI doesn't sleep. AI doesn't send out one text. AI, when it goes after you or goes after other people, it's 24/7, 7 days a week, and it's doing tens of thousands of messages at a time. So when you're blocking it as spam, it just flips over and does a different phone number. So just keep that in mind. It just keeps growing. So the fraudulent activity kind of lives in these 4 quadrants, and I just kind of like to go over what we see. We've got deed theft, which is very catastrophic, and it's a lot of people out there think that it's not very often that it happens, and that's a false belief. It does happen a lot, and my account was a testament, especially on vacant land. Identity theft, we're all kind of familiar with that. I didn't go into that very much because a lot of the identity theft that we see, just know that ID is no longer just the single level of sort of verification that you can do. So in the professional world, we're looking at multiple levels of verification, not only ID, but we need a physical meeting with people. We can't do things over the internet like we would love to. And that's one of the conditioning things that sort of the fraudster world is loving right now, because we're being very conditioned to do everything over the phone, everything over the internet. So we're removing that face-to-face element, and that's just leaving a big wide opening for these guys. So catfishing, wire fraud. Everybody understand what catfishing is? Yeah, and if anybody doesn't, I bring this up because inevitably there's people that don't understand it, but bear with me for a second because it does warrant a little explanation. Catfishing is when you're talking to somebody and they're presenting you a different identity that they actually are. So we see this a lot, and when I was with the Attorney General's office, this is one of the biggest issues that we see targeting seniors. It's people pretending to be your friend, a Facebook request, a text message, and it turns out that they're not who they say they are, and you're sending money, even sometimes small amounts, to people that are completely fraudulent. So this isn't just about teaching you guys about this problem. It's about giving you some tools so that if somebody you know starts to exhibit a certain behavior, you can step in with some of the tools that we have, and you can help identify and even stop it. Because one of the things that happens on a professional world is when I come into a transaction, somebody calls and says, I want to sell my house. And it did happen, and a lady was very nice. She was 85, she was in a wheelchair, a retired doctor, very sweet lady. I met with her in Sun City, and it was a beautiful new house. She said, I want to sell my house, I need to sell it quick because I'm moving to Hollywood, I'm super excited. And I was like, great, moving to Hollywood, can I ask, what's bringing you back there? And she goes, well, can't really share, but I have met somebody, and all I need to do is just sell this house. I just need $100,000 out of it. And I'm looking at the value of the home, and the home is about $600,000 home. So I'm like, well, why do you want cash? Because you could probably sell this overnight for around $500,000. She said, because it's super important, again, the time urgency, it's a very common thing, super important to get this money within 3 days, because my new lover, and I later found out it was Mel Gibson, she was being catfished, is wanting me to move to his mansion in Beverly Hills, but he's got throat cancer. So he can't tell his publicist, he can't tell his wife, so he can't pull any money out of his accounts, because if anybody finds out, he'll get basically kicked out of Hollywood. He won't get any parts. So he just wants to do this privately. He wants to do it, and I told him I would help him, so that's what I'm gonna do. So before I took any more information, I asked her, okay, let me ask you this, is there somebody that you work with? Is there a family member nearby that maybe you have looking at paperwork that I could talk to? And she gave me her daughter's name and information. I took it down, I wrote it down, I shut the computer, and I'm like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I gotta tell you, this is not real. This is not happening. You are not going, Mel Gibson isn't soliciting you to bring you back to Hollywood. And she said, yes, it is. How dare you do that? And she was so mad, she ushered me out of the house. So I called the daughter got involved, they were able to block it and protect her from selling her house artificially low to anyone else. But moral of the story is I found out that this was happening more often than not, where you approach people in these situations. Like for you guys, you maybe get it suspicious, because one of the red flags that you'll see out there if somebody's a victim of catfishing is they begin to isolate. Has anybody known anybody in the room here that's been a victim of catfishing or attempted? So when that happens, there's a really big push for people to get these victims away from their friends, away from their family, off of Facebook, off of text message, into confidential WhatsApp, onto these other messaging boards. So when it comes to this, if you start to see this pattern where people isolate, they stop talking to you, that could be a victim of catfishing. So what we've done is we put together a form, and I think you've got a copy of it there, but the form itself is something that we've sent out, and we're proud because we've caught over 60 plus people have called us and said, thank you for this, because it's an anonymous form. So like for my example, my lady, she hired an attorney, filed a lawsuit, she put a 1-star review on the internet about me, and I had to fight to get all that stuff removed just because I approached her. So this is an anonymous letter that we have for professionals, for consumers. So if you have somebody that's suspicious and they're talking about this great new love affair that they have and they're sending money, maybe send this out to them, because you can send it anonymously and it has a massive amount of free information on there. So, and it is free on our website. So on a consumer level, we talk about really anytime you're doing a transaction, reaching out to the people that you're working with and asking them specifically, hey, I know fraud is an issue. What kind of programs, what kind of things are you doing in your business to protect me as your client from any potential harm? So you just want to get that down, because it's important as you're doing any kind of a transaction where there's money that's moving around, that you're working with people that understand it, because if they don't, that can be to your demise financially. So county recorders, I'm going to talk about deed theft, I'm going to talk about recording. Everybody, when my article and all the videos and everything went out, I was getting constant emails and messages from people, and they were saying the county recorders are involved, they're in cahoots, they should be sued, there's no way a fraudulent deed can get recorded, it should easily be able to be stopped by the recorder. So I just point out that all county recorders in the United States, their job is considered procedural. Their job is not a detective, their job is not to look, to validate, to do anything with the document. Their job when they get a document is to look for just a few items: a buyer, a seller, a legal description, and signatures from both. If it meets those parameters and it's on a document that they recognize and is appropriate, they're going to file it. When that gets filed, that's when ownership transfers. So keep that in mind, that it's not the recorder's fault, but if you are involved in a transaction like this, what you have to understand is that once you get the notice, it's already happened. So now what you have to do is you have to go back, learn the tools to stop that and basically unwind that. And there's a couple things I'll share with you. The deed alert system, January of 2025 last year, Maricopa County and every single county in the state of Arizona makes a requirement now. You can log into your county and you can put down your information and get notified of anything that gets recorded in your name. So I recommend this not only for yourself, but I recommend it for anybody that you know. And when I'm talking to kids with elderly parents, record it, put your name down, put your contact information down, so that you get noticed too. If anything gets recorded in that person's name, you're going to get a notice from it. Because it's important, time is super critical. So when these notices come out, if you can act quick, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to call the local police. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. You're going to call the FBI, you're going to call the Attorney General. You can, but they're not going to get back to you for months. And most of the time they're going to get back to you and say, one house, yeah, we're not interested, we can't help you. It's not across state lines, it's not a thing we can help you with, unfortunately. Go to your local police. So when that happens, file a report with the local police. That's what you do to protect yourself. That police report and the close proximity to a recording will help you in the long run clear this up legally. Everybody brings up Title Lock. Are people familiar with the Title Lock services that are out there? A lot of people, these are paid subscriptions. Everything that Title Lock does, you can do for free. You don't need that service. I'm going to point out to you why Title Lock is in such hot water right now with the federal government and the FTC, not only for false advertising, scare tactics, and all the different things that they do. The fraud alert systems, or the systems that you sign up for with your local county, it's instant. As soon as that item is recorded, you get an email immediately saying that something has happened. In my case, it was basically less than a week or 8 days from the time that she actually filed that deed to the time she was in jail. That's how quick it happens when you actually get it and you work with the right people. In the case of Title Lock, what they do is, because they can't possibly send out and monitor all these counties across the United States every single day, every single hour, they do batch notifications. And in some cases, a batch notification doesn't go out for 14 days. Well, in 14 days, not only can your deed be stolen, it can be sold and resold again. In the world of real estate, it can happen really fast. And in those cases, it can be a total financial loss if you weren't warned early enough. So I never throw any company under the bus, but I will say, Title Lock services, just make sure you know what you're getting, because you can do those things for free. There are some things that they offer, insurance and some other things, but you can do those things on your own as well. So, and trying to do any kind of insurance claim, I'm sorry, whether it's a stain on your couch or a dent in a door we all know what it's like imagine trying to get paid $400,000 on a stolen deed from Title Lock. The stories are horrible online. So we have a lot of tools that we share. There's some handouts that you have here. Going to our website too, great resource, because we're updating that website weekly with every single link, every single resource. One of the most recent links that we just added, which was great, was, and I didn't know about it, but the AARP called us and said, hey, we got a great new tool that we've launched. So if somebody's suspecting a friend or a family member being a victim of some kind of catfishing event, they can call us. We will reach out to the community and we will find somebody nearby that can reach out as a friend and give them a personal touch and basically walk them through the resources that are out there. So lots of resources, share it. It's just our website, homefrauddefense.org. Click on Resource Center and you'll see all the tools, all the checklists, everything that you've got here and more that you can hand out to people. Fraud targets, and this is interesting because in the real estate world, it makes it even more impactful, but these life transitions. And we know it, we post it on Facebook, from married to single, or you kind of see all those signs. Well, those algorithms, these AI models, these learning models, that's one of their biggest umbrellas that they're searching right now, is life changes, a death in the family, a loss of a spouse, a quick need to sell, a loss of a job, a foreclosure notice. All these heavy lifting transactions or life events tend to, at some level, touch real estate. So that's why it's super important for us as a real estate community to understand it. but also for you guys to understand it as well. Because if something happens and you're a part of it, you will be a target. And keep in mind, like I said, and I'll say it over and over again, how you respond to these messages is super critical, because that's how AI will learn to respond back to you. I shared an example of an elderly client that I had, and she was getting these, we've all had them, hey, coffee at 10, just a random text. And you're like, okay, it's fraud, right? You know that it is. But what if you're just the kind, bored person and you're like, hey, I'm sorry, sweetheart, wrong number. Well, AI models are learning that. They're watching that response. And even though you might not get something from that particular text message again, what happens is your data now has been elevated. So now they're gonna seek out your name, they're gonna seek out an email, they're gonna seek out all the different ways that they can contact you, and then they're gonna start sending you messages from other things and other items. So just keep in mind, the only correct way to do it is just spam and delete. Don't respond to these people. Building your fraud team, you know, I just mentioned this, that as you're going about any transaction out there, just make sure now, it's a new world, right? We didn't talk about this 15 years ago, 10 years ago, because it was such a rare occurrence. But now when you're talking 1 in 4 transactions are, you just have to know and share with everybody that you know that fraud awareness, fraud education just has to be part of our daily communication, part of our transaction. How we function now is just ruled by this AI technology that's not going away, right? The genie's out of the bottle, it's here, so now we have to protect ourselves. Title insurance versus title monitoring. Insurance, again, is paying after the harm. And when we talk about these homes that have stolen and all the stories that are out there and that keep growing, and for me, I get, it's daily, I get some phone call of somebody that's sharing something that we got from a presentation or that saw us somewhere. And the reality of title insurance is, and title fraud is, if the title insurance pays out, that's fine, right? You get a claim and they pay out. Title insurance, they don't like it. They don't like to pay that claim. But walk through the scenario where you've got a house, a summer house, a house that you don't visit all the time, and it's got artwork, it's got possessions, jewelry, and all this information. Now somebody does a title theft on it. Now they just pull up with a U-Haul truck, and guess what? They wipe it out. So that's what's going on. It's not, you might be able to get title insurance to pay that, but guess what? Now every single possession out of that house is gone. And if the police pull up and say, hey, what are you doing here? If a neighbor calls, and this has happened, they just pull out the deed or the new owners. Thank you very much. And then the police just leave. The police aren't trained to identify it. You pull out a deed that was just recorded with a notary stamp, they're not gonna bother you. I mean, there's nobody around. They're just gonna tell the neighbors, hey, they're the new owners. Guess they just sold the house. So that's the big issue with this, is not only monitoring your title, but if you do have out-of-state property or houses or things like that, you need to do things, and there's services out there. There's cameras and there's remote operations that you can do. Put internet there and put a Ring camera and just do things to protect that house. Because even if you're doing everything right, and it can be a real serious burglary situation. So fraud detection, I know this is hard to read, but I just wanted to kind of point it out, like I said before, when we talk about the emails that are coming in. Now, in the world of emails, it's if you see a slight typo, it actually has a touch of humanity to it. Because now, basically fraud, their emails are so good. They're dialect specific. They even got local slang down. So you're gonna see these fraudulent emails come across that might look like, because they'll clone various email addresses. For example, we'll see title companies, they'll have their account duplicated, and instead of being like Pioneer Escrow, instead of an O in escrow, they'll do a 0. So you'll look at that email and it'll be Pioneer Escrow, look fine, at pioneerescrow.com, and you're like, okay, this is the company I should be working with, but it's not. It's fraudulent. The other thing that happened to me most recently, and this was just the other day, so I didn't get it in the slide, but I want to point it out because it's a new scam that's going on, is Everybody familiar with DocuSign? Online signing programs? So DocuSign has a very distinct window when you open it. It's blue, it's kind of a light blue, and it's got this big button in the middle that says click here to sign. So what's going on right now is anytime you get a document to sign, if it's from DocuSign, it'll say DocuSign.net. That's who it comes from. But what the hackers are doing now, and I got one from a company I hadn't worked with in 13 years from Southern California. And I opened up the email, and it was E&E Gate and Ironworks. And I opened it up, and it looked like it was an exact clone of a DocuSign document. So I knew right away that this was obviously some kind of a virus or something if I clicked on that button. So I called the people, and I said, hey, just checking, because I just got a DocuSign file from you guys to just click and sign. I haven't talked to you guys in a lot of years, so I'm assuming this is fraud. And they're like, yes, our email got hacked. And they've been sending out this email, and it's a virus. Don't click on it. Be sure to delete it. But it is such an insidious little trick, because imagine if you're in the process of working on escrow, in your process of signing paperwork with a wire transfer, or working with, you know, anything that requires a DocuSign signature. Because again, we're going online. That's our new society. And you see a DocuSign signature, and it just says, because all mine said is sign here for approval. So, you know, and remember, it's just a click now. It's not just you got to download it on your computer. It's like, it's a click and you're done. Your computer is going to be loaded. Yes?
How does a crook make money by giving me a virus on my computer?
Yeah, good question. So all they want to do now, so in the old days, when we talk about fraud, it was like watching your credit card transactions for a $30 charge. That's not mine. I want to, you know, dispute it. They don't care about that anymore. The master data, the master plan is to get into your phone, into your computer, so that they can see and they can log into your accounts, they can see your passwords, they can see your keystrokes. So they're basically, like, there's a new thing going on, it's SMS cloning. Basically, they're calling and they're breaking into, using your public information. They're calling cell phone companies and they're saying, hey, I lost my phone, can I get a new SIM card? They're getting the SIM card replacement. They're cloning your phone so that next time you log into a bank and they do the two-factor authentication, that goes to two people. They see it. Now if they've got a virus on your phone, they know what bank you're using. They know what your login is, right? Because that's never masked. Now they've got that ability to log into your account. So it's...
When you say virus, you mean clone my information?
Well, there's a lot of different things that they can do, but what they want to do is they want to load, and they load software on your computer that you don't even know is there. Even professionals don't know that it's there. And what they're doing is they're just monitoring. They're just watching every keystroke. They're watching you log into your bank, your Chase account, your US bank account, and then they're able to go in there. Now the other, oh, go ahead.
Okay, so my question to you is, why is AI being allowed? What is it for?
Yeah. Yeah, and in the world of AI, you know, it's just open source.
I understand that, but why is Congress or whoever approved it allowing it so bad?
Yeah, so new technology, genie out of the bottle. All these technology, anytime this technology, we have this huge swing in technology, whether it's the internet launch, cell phone launch, it's called a legislative lag. So legislation will never keep up with technology, ever. It'll never happen. So that's why we've got to have education, because you're right, in about a year, you'll start to see some legislation, and they'll start to shut down. Hollywood, for example. Hollywood, a lot of the people, actors, are filing lawsuits against ChatGPT and Sora and all these different programs saying, Morgan Freeman just did one this week, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit saying, my voice is on your site. You are allowing people to mimic my voice, and that is my bread and butter. So he's suing, and they pulled it off. But again, no legislation, private lawsuit. So these are the things that will never catch up. Technology, do you remember a few years ago when cryptocurrency started coming out and the crypto world was there and it was all smoke and mirrors and nobody wanted to invest in it? It's like, yeah, whatever, crypto. Well, the crypto industry was an industry that is kind of a good example, because what happened to them is they were losing 175 billion with a B per year in fraud, wire transfers, people stealing Bitcoin. It was out of control. So they actually, as an industry, went to legislation